It was once the capital of Gondor, but civil war and continued attacks on the city made it fall into ruin. Osgiliath, Citadel of the Stars. Today on Council of the Rings, we'll explore the first time we encountered the Uruks and how Sauron sent them to attack Osgiliath in 2475, an attack that would bring further destruction to Osgiliath. The watchful peace ended in 2460, when Sauron again began to stir. During the peace, Sauron had been hiding in the east, but he was not idle. He brought various tribes of Easterlings under his service, and in Mordor a new breed of orcs had been created, the uruk-hai, better suited to withstand the sunlight, stronger, faster, and smarter than normal orcs. A deadly tool in Sauron's hands. In 2460, Sauron returned with increased strength to Dol Guldur. His return coincided with the One Ring's discovery by Deagle just 3 years later. During the peace, Gondor strengthened its borders, keeping a watchful eye on the east, as Minas Morgul was still a threat, and Mordor was still occupied with orcs. After the Nazgul had captured Minas Ithil in 2002, Osgiliath became vulnerable to attacks, and was widely believed to be haunted, as its population continued to shrink. Sauron prepared his armies in Mordor for 15 years, and then he was ready to renew his attacks on Gondor. The steward of the time was called Denethor I, who was already an aging steward at age 100. He had 2 unnamed daughters and a son named Boromir. While Gondor had kept a watchful eye on Minas Morgul and Mordor, they had not discovered that the lords of Minas Morgul had secretly bred the uruk-hai. In 2475, the uruk-hai army marched out of Mordor. They quickly overran Ithilien, and many of the Gondorians in that area fled to Osgiliath, that was the last bastion in the region. But the Gondorians were greatly outnumbered, and the city of Osgiliath fell to the Uruks. The steward's son, Boromir, had in the meantime gathered all the men he could muster and attacked Osgiliath from the west. We can only imagine the army would also include soldiers from the other fiefs of Gondor. Boromir was a great captain, and even the Witch King feared him. He was noble and fair of face, a man strong in body and in will. Boromir defeated the uruk-hai and retook the city, but the great stone bridge was finally ruined and could not be repaired. Despite of this, Boromir managed to free the rest of Ithilien, slaying many foes and routing the remaining orcs and uruks that fled back to Mordor. Victory was assured, but not without cost. Boromir had been wounded by a Morgul blade, and it would continue to cause him pain in days afterwards. Osgiliath was abandoned by its last citizens, and no one lived in the city thereafter. 2 years after, Denethor I died of old age, and Boromir became the 11th steward of Gondor, but his rule was short-lived and full of agony and pain because of the Morgul wound. In Gondor, leechcraft was the most common way of healing wounds, and it's most likely how he was treated in the houses of healing in Minas Tirith. The Gondorians were great healers, but against the Morgul wound, their leeches would do little. In old lore it was said that the hands of the king is the hands of a healer, as Eoreth mentions in The Lord of the Rings. But sadly no king would come to Boromir's aid. He only ruled for 12 years, and died a premature death. We can only guess if it was the Witch King that wounded him, or one of the other Nazgul. But whoever it was, it assured his death in the end. His son Kirill ruled after him, and would later grant Calenathan to the Eotheod, but that's a tale for another day. While the uruk-hai had been defeated by Boromir, Sauron had in a way succeeded, but he only sought to test the defences of Gondor and prepare for the final assault. For Gondor there was never full peace again in Osgiliath and Ithilien, at least not until after the defeat of Sauron. As always, thank you for watching, and special thanks to the patrons and members of the channel. If you want to know more about Sauron, check out this video next. Farewell till next time.